to prioritize these focus areas. We've got 7 up there, which is plenty of focus and work to do. But let's see what we're missing. So who had one that isn't in, and by the way, up there were connections with younger people, communications, outreach, calling a priest, and we talked both about the in-between time and the eventual call, permanent call, and utilizing the building and financial resources. What did you have that isn't up there?
What part of membership retaining and new people did we have that? What page was that on? Was that communication or what was that? Connections, okay. Just making sure that it's up there because I think that how we value each other relates to how we value out into the world.
And we have on that one, it was on either 6 or 7 people's objectives, including Joe's, which I didn't claim. Okay, well, who has a new one that's not up there?
Need something like worship, liturgy.
How many people had worship? 3 with Joe, that was her 3rd. And her statement about that was about making it accessible for everybody and everybody understanding it. So sharing why music is chosen, sharing why we do certain things we do. The BCP, I thought 101 will really help with that. No, we don't. Should we add it under communications, or should we do a separate area? How many people had technology?
Well, it's kind of incorporated. Yeah.
We wouldn't even come up with that word, 3 years ago, would we?
Right.
It's big and we've learned a lot about it. Another one that we don't have yet.
This isn't exactly a thing.
I don't know that this is a focus area, but one of the things that I was thinking is it'd be nice if we had some kind of a big thing, like we had Faith Alive some years ago where it was a program thing that was, I don't know, spiritual and exciting and everything, that something big that could light a fire under everybody in the congregation.
Remember the healing one we did with
Nigel
Mumford? Yeah, Nigel, oh, that was
I was
amazing.
thinking Faith Alive because it was,
Right, that was.
there was a band and there was all kinds of stuff on.
It was like a fake foundation.
It was a big party.
You might use revival.
Revival, there you go.
I know.
Kathy said revival.
Did you read John pamphlet?
Okay.
I could read you something that is on pamphlet to set about revival.
Do.
It's real short.
Use the microphone.
It's worth it. Real short. Christians, you want to have a real revival? Stop singing. Start emulating Jesus. Get out of the church building and go feed the hungry, heal the sick, care for the poor, welcome the immigrant, and love the least. It takes no effort to sing. Singing alone helps no one outside the building. Leave the building, go in love, then sing while you do.
Ah,
We do a lot of that stuff already, but
Something. Yeah, but sometimes you need that singing within to create that within yourself, be willing to have the energy to go out. You need
Yeah.
to take care of yourself, that self-care. That's part of that sort of thing.
That's what
My
Kazay is.
husband used to say about certain people who had left this church was they're always looking for the next.
High.
mountaintop
Yep.
experience.
Yep.
You know, they always need that, and sometimes you just have to go with the flow.
It's the days of the ordinaries.
Yep.
That's why the daily liturgy is called the ordinary. That's what our lives.
Yep. Yep.
We'll take everyone's ideas, so other objectives that are not on the list.
We need more small group type thing. This has been fantastic today. And so good to be out.
Especially since your knitting got snowed in.
Right.
Yeah. Another one. Great, let me ask a different question then. I hope we've got what was on your list in terms of these 11 topics now that we have. But let's think about it in terms of the existing mission statement of love God, love people, other people.
Love people.
And show it. Are all of these things within that mission is a first question. And are there any of them that might suggest extending that mission?
Possibly. Possibly the third one, the faith alive. Otherwise, this has been a really encompassing mission statement that's easy to remember for some of us. But I think that that third one might be an extension. Otherwise, I think we are trying to extend the mission statement. Was it love God, love people, or love your neighbors?
Love God, love people, show it.
Show it, yeah. It's very important that we listen to the stories of the students.
Go ahead. Yes.
I think it's important that we listen to each other's stories too, so we can be stronger that way. Find out where everybody's coming from. And do it in a respectful manner.
And I think you've done a great job at that, by the way, as a group.
And relating to that, because I've been reaching out to people that we don't see at church on a regular basis, partly because we're personal friends, but I think it's really important that the show it includes those that we don't see sometimes, and it's not because they're upset, it's physical issues or other issues, but keeping us involved with each other includes those folks also that just aren't physically able or haven't been there a while and they feel like they're ashamed, so they're afraid to come back, that sort of thing. Those are important connections also.
Other comments about the current mission statement and the things that we've been talking about in all the conversations?
So we all know that I think that's a fabulous mission statement. I also think that what we've talked about is encompassed in that mission statement. I think that what would be really helpful is to put then flesh on each one of those areas. So we have mission and we have what then is our vision for that particular? I mean, Jim's been asking us the question, so what does that look like? And I think that's the question that this group might, and we've done tons of work on that, but putting flesh on what does that look like? So under the love God, what does it look like? Under the love others, what does it look like? Under the show it, what does it look like? And in ways that then can drive budget and program. And worship, in ways that can drive those things.
Somebody else? Thank you. I'm gonna ask you to again, rate these focus areas. There are now 11 of them. So they're circled, and feel free to walk over to those sheets. I know we're not talking about specifics in terms of what they look like, but
Excuse me.
this will give us a sense of which focus area now, since we've talked about them, you feel is particularly important for Trinity to focus on first. All of these things are things you're gonna focus on, by the way. But you're not gonna be able to focus on 11 areas at once. And so we wanna narrow that down, and I'm not sure how far we will. I'd like you to pick out in number order your top 3, and then I'll collect that data and we'll see where the focus areas fall. And then we'll talk a little bit about goal setting before we leave. And following up on mission and vision. I'm gonna ask you to raise your hands for each of these. Oh, they can have it, you can write them down so you could have them. Yep.
Yeah, get up and look at the ones that got put down.
Right, pick your top 3.
They're little, they went to the office in my.
That's the best word.
In my bag, but.
No, I think they did it again.
No,
Roll their microphone.
let me see. See if we can resurrect it. Yeah, you broke it.
Oh, no, oh, no. Come to one of our best.
Three things.
So let's look at these ones. How are you guys labeling them? Oh, as two separate ones or something?
Well, it's 2 parts, whenever you do it. One is, in between time, and the other one is calling.
I think we're very resourceful.
I know what one that was facing me as it was facing me was the left channel and the right was group.
And we have a tie.
Nope.
But they're all in
Well, that was at the annual meeting.
I wrote worship. UORK. Oh, I know. Yep, your top 3. Are they doing it? They're, I know, that is the news. That they're hiring different people in the. Oh, yeah. Never been in. No, and also to say. I'm there, small neighborhood, you see all of these. My biggest role is. I do, also that it's on. I'm trying to find this in downtown, but I can't remind them and then set up here out of this. Yeah. Normally I have about 9, and I'm still. I don't write them. No, like some. For writing them. The junior one, secretary, staff. Very specific. Yes, looking for so long. So you guys. That's fun then. So that, they decide. These are grants for. That's right, yes. And you guys. Just done that from March. There's always somebody. And then I really think we need that. Oh, Lord, you know, like, I like to do
Yeah.
I know some members are not really wait for the grass.
Got it.
Salary.
Because I wanted to.
I know. Well, I went.
Ah,
Okay, last chance, get your 3 down.
oh, we put them all in one place?
I did put them all in one place so I can write down the votes. So I'm gonna ask in order of your 1, 2, and 3. So the first one, I'm gonna say if your number 1 is each one of these, raise your hand. So how many, who has as their number 1 connections? Number 1 as younger people. Okay, take a minute and pick your top 3. Okay. All right, so younger people isn't one of them, right? Who has communications as their number 1? Who has outreach as their number 1? Number 1. You can't have 3 number 1s. I'll explain the numbering in a minute. Who has priest call as your number 1? Utilizing this building? Financial resources? Not for 1. Worship? Technology? Revival? Small groups? So everybody got their number 1 in, right? Okay, number 2. Connections, number 2. Younger people. Communications. Outreach. Priest call. utilizing the building. Financial resources. To worship. Technology. Revival. Small groups. Okay, number 3 is connections. Younger people. Communications. Outreach. Priest call. Utilize building. Financial resources. Worship. Technology. Revival. Small groups. Okay, just give me a second.
I don't think we have any cushions. Is there a pillow back there?
No, I've got communications. There's one, was buildings for outreach and financial and worship 5, 6, and 7. And technology is 8. So, great. So normally, we're not going to have time to start this today, but normally we would do an example of goal setting in a particular area. And we would start with communications, which actually is a great one to start with because it's fairly tangible and because you've spelled out a lot of ideas for it already and how to do it. When I do the notes for this, I'll put these areas in this order, and I'll put what we said about them under each one. And then, and I can come back for this, or you can start on it in vestry meetings to talk about what do we want to do goal-wise for these. And then also we're going to need to talk about what is the mission vision team going to do beyond this with the mission and vision. And maybe you and Joe and I can just talk about that one. But so for communications, if we were starting with that, I would say, I need you to answer 3 questions for there to be a goal. So if there's a goal in this area, say it was to create a communications plan or handbook, as Joe called it, that might be a goal because we've got a what for it. And we also have sources to pull for that what. And if there will be other goals in communications because we've identified. There'll be multiple goals in each focus area. But for that communications plan, the 3 questions you need to ask for the communications plan goal are, who's gonna do this? What are they gonna do? And when are they gonna do it by? And usually, well, there is a fourth question that we haven't answered in most of these things. How are they gonna do it? But the how question, the fourth question, I would ask you to let the who answer that first. And then come back and check it with the vestry to see, does this make sense? This is what we're planning to do. So give responsibility to the team or person who's doing it to come up with how they're gonna do it. Okay, so who's gonna do it? What are they gonna do? And when? And as you can see, it's pretty easy for the communications plan to fill in those blanks probably. You'll have volunteers, you'll have a very tangible project. Some of the projects are a lot less tangible. And so some of the first steps may be making them more tangible, like connections. How are we going to make these connections? Well, the communications plan is going to be part of that. You've got these overlaps, and you can say communications is going to take care of these things. And then you can say these are other elements that we want to use that. And you might even jump to something that doesn't have any points, like small groups to put up there and then build on that. But you'll need to look at what are our goal areas now under each focus area. And some of that might be, and on this connection ones, I didn't read you Joe's answer to that, but she said directly, we might need to go out and talk to some people some more about what they're looking for, what they want to work with. And the same thing will be true about that outreach collaboration goal. We may need more outside information than we have. So the first goal might be, we need to get in a relationship with some people to talk about how we're going to collaborate. And that would be a great goal, but then you're going to have those specifics, and the who, what, and when will make it possible. See how I'm building on this and how I'm saying you don't have a goal until you've said who, what, and when they're going to do it by. But you do have a goal once you do that, because you've got an area to work in, you've got a specific action step, and then you've defined how you can, what the action plan is for that. Some of those will come off super, usually the ones that are more tangible, like that communication plan. And some of them will need to be adapted as you go. Or there will also be some where something else comes up and you lose interest in it. And that's okay, as long as you realize we didn't meet our time goal. That's okay, we had to move something else up in the list to work on. So just adapt it, right? These are your starting priorities. If you're wondering why I didn't ask the question why, it's because in these two sessions, we've asked the question why. We've talked about why this is important to Trinity, and the only time we need to ask why again is if we need to reprioritize. So my example of something else comes up and the vestry says, we need to work on this instead. That's fine. Just make the conscious choice to do it and say, maybe our work on technology is going to be next year or the year after. Questions about that? So one way to do this in vestry meetings is just to pick one focus area per vestry meeting and start talking about the goals in that area. And, but otherwise we can come together for another period like this and get through several of them. It's not quite as fun as what we've been doing together.
I think we maybe don't wanna speak out, but I think we wanted a greater group like this and not just exclusively that group.
I agree.
So if all of you guys are still on board and we have several other people, I'd kind of like to have us, when Joe gets back from her vacation, schedule another kind of Saturday.
Yeah.
day if that works. So we'll reach out to everyone and
You mean to pick one thing to talk about or?
well, to go through his goal setting process and how do we do this and have a retreat. I'm assuming if we do a Saturday, we'll probably maybe address more than one.
Yeah,
Like the
I
top
mean,
three.
we'll probably get, similar to this, we might get through 5 of them, which is probably the maximum that you really want to work on. You just have to see, but, you only have capacity for so much at a time. So when we talk to the congregation about this, it's say, you know, these are our priorities as we've identified them. But we're not gonna get to them all at once. And all the other things that you put on the list
Well,
for us, they're still on the list. We still have the materials from the Holy Conversations. We have all of these from the annual meeting. Many of them are addressed under here. The ones we didn't address doesn't mean we rejected them. It just means we had to prioritize.
So, I mean, I agree with you thinking about that, but not everybody can do it Saturday.
Finally, I just posted
want
them
to.
myself.
But, if we were gonna look at doing that, could we look at list, you know, over on the wall there, 3 or 5 of them,
But I
and then
can't post it
allow
on
people,
Instagram.
you know, when they come
Where
to
do I
coffee,
want to?
to give their
Should I
thoughts
post it
on,
back when you post to the page?
or do they have to participate in the whole process?
I don't
of
know
it?
how you post from
That's-
Facebook
I
to
think you know the
Instagram. I
process
think
better
I
because
have,
we were
I
like
said
saying-
it's.
Remember though, as a vestry that
Maybe I don't.
you're gonna
Never
invite
saw it on
the community to make final decisions about it. These are our priorities as a congregation. It's the vestry rule. But you can get as much input, and I encourage input as you want.
Facebook thinks it's
And
really
one
messing
thing
with my
might be to pause
Facebook.
and say, look, these are the things that we've identified that we're planning to work on. We'd
Because I
love your
can still
input
post. can't I?
on those, because
Even if
we
I'm
have
not.
not fully fleshed out what could be our goals. And
Oh,
some
yeah,
people
if
will
people
have
can
good
post
ideas.
saying they
They-
have bogus
Because people
jobs.
had ideas,
available.
and now we've kind of organized them and prioritized them, so
Yeah.
that maybe people could focus on the first 3 or something. And it seemed like a lot of people were willing to put, you know, little
Yeah.
comments and ideas up there, but direct it how it would be, you know, we don't want to put all the ideas out, we want to focus on the who, what, when, right?
Yep, exactly,
But,
because those are the questions you need to answer now.
right,
So
that would be.
Are we thinking maybe like, posting up the who, what, when, and then have like little, I'm just thinking the best way to get that information here without overwhelming the wall, you
Right.
know, like, so maybe have like note cards that people can write, here's a goal under this, like on the list. Here's the list of the focus.
Index cards, right on the.
Yeah, you could probably even, do them as 3x5 slips and have the goal stated at the top and then say who, what, when. Now,
Yeah.
remember, some of these you don't have clear goals, set. I mean, the
Well,
what.
but would they
what.
identify what goal they want? Is that what you're thinking, Jenna? So they would identify a goal under communications is such and such, and here's my who, what, why. Do you think people are gonna need to be trained on that?
So I'm just asking if there's a way to get everybody to be able to give an input on that. That isn't gonna require them to come to an event like this, because they might not be inclined to, but they might have good ideas. They might want to share their thoughts. So we're asking people, what are your ideas about? A suggestion. But kind of focus.
Right, so are
a
we
more
thinking
focused thing.
suggestion for goals? And then within the who, what? So under each of these areas, so they would have to identify, here's the area, here's the goal that I think we should be focused on, and here's my who, what, why. Do you think people need to be trained on that, or do you think that it's pretty self-explanatory?
I don't know, so can we just take communication, we just start with that. And so what you're saying is right now we don't have a goal, so we can't talk about the who, what, when, till we have a goal.
Right, you have to
Well-
identify different goals underneath that, and
Yeah.
then within each goal, you have to identify.
We basically need to identify the basic what, to have the start of the goal, the goal area. So we've got a focus area, but we know they're gonna be 3 goals or something like
So-
that.
But instead, just to get it going, is to take maybe the first 3, the top 3. There's plenty of space here. And they can get
There's no
started.
reason I
and
need
then
to stay in
we can kind of prompt them by saying, we're gonna be setting goals, and then we're gonna be looking at the who, what, when, just so they can give
Ideas of what
specific
they think
ideas
goals.
about that topic.
Okay,
I don't know.
We
just
could have
asking.
suggestion boxes for each one.
Right, yeah, but could kind of focus on each topic, each.
right, because that's, we wanna make sure that we know,
Really
and that
messes
they're
with this.
identifying goals within.
Yeah.
Cause Jim said,
And
there are
for
gonna be
some
multiple
unknown
goals. in
reason,
each
many
one of these
people have
areas.
started
So they
messaging
would
me that
identify,
way.
here's what I think a goal is in connections, and here's my who would be going to do it, what are they going to be doing, and when are they going to be doing it? So like maybe post
It's
something
funny,
like
cause
that.
it used to let me look in
The top
Trinity
three, yeah,
posts
do that.
I
as
did that
me.
at coffee hours, you don't have to
And
do it
I'd
all at
say,
once,
I
you
know
can
last
say,
month
we're
it
gonna
won't.
think about
Yeah,
communication, what would you like to see
changed.
happen, and
Yeah.
then communication and your ideas.
But we also wanna get people
I have
online.
3
I mean, like,
Well, yeah,
profiles
but
and I
it's
have to
not-
always keep making sure.
What, why, for, I mean, you don't have to do everything all at once, right? Just get ideas for something.
Great. And I think we're not very up.
When we were asked to go on those things, it was hard to just think right off the top of my head like that.
yeah.
Well, that's why I was wondering about taking, you know, the first 3 or something.
Mhm.
And then, you know, we can have suggestion box for each one, however, and to prompt them of what we want from them.
It's very
What we're looking
interesting.
for is
Worship is
input
not
on
in the first
what
three.
goals we should have, and the.
Oh,
And that'll
And
kind
the
of
problem
prompt
is
Then
that you
to
don't
think
know
about
what
it,
kind of worship
and that
you
we'll be
want.
gathering this until, and whatever our next meeting is.
But if we have a
Gathering
couple
your
of these, that
feedback.
out, over a couple of weeks, that maybe people have time to think about it, I don't know.
Oh, yes, you can.
Well, we have such good technology, why don't we work it out?
'Cause
Well,
that's
but we
also-
also wanna make sure that we have it in a way that people who aren't as.
Maybe in the newsletter or whatever.
But I really like that, like you said, a dollar for this for each area. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
starting the conversation, and hopefully my notes are gonna give you a little bit more information about what we mean by the top areas. So, and then you can adapt those a little bit just to get the conversation started. So it doesn't limit them to what they say, but at least they'll have ideas about what was going to.
If I were thinking myself and I wasn't at this meeting and I came and I said, we're gonna be talking about, communications, for example. You have a box that says, how do you feel about, what do you feel about communications in the church? Why do you think it? You know, put that on box, say communications and have what, why?
If the cards.
And the
that were
cards.
In there had those.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you
But I
don't
think
wanna
we need to-
start at the very beginning, because
Right,
we've
we've
already had the conversation,
If you
and
look-
we've had a lot of.
We're looking for goals now, so
Yeah.
specific
So it
things
would
that
say
people,
goals.
right, so goal, what is your
Maybe
goal
just start with goals.
under each area?
All
So
right,
like
so
that.
then put, what are your goals for communication?
How about one goal?
Yeah, I think
One-
one goal,
goal.
each person's top goals for
Yes,
this
it's just
area,
gonna get
and who, what,
down again.
I just wanted to have it so that other people
or who, what, when.
could give their input.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And I agree, but I also don't wanna go back to,
No, I agree,
oh,
I
do you
agree,
think
yeah.
communications is the best top one?
No.
We've already hit that point, we've already got plenty.
The other thing to be careful about is the number 2 goal. Because that's a vested responsibility,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be shaped by the
That's your
masses.
responsibility.
Oh.
So I
Well,
would
it
not,
might be the best grease, Paul, but don't you like to let people, don't you like to hear what people are saying they would like?
Isn't that all
I-
part of
Not,
the search?
not until the process starts,
Okay.
and it'll be done as part of the process.
You say you'd be going like.
And it won't necessarily be identifiable as that.
Right.
I
And I think it's
remember
fine to
anybody ever
acknowledge that
asked
this is one of the
them,
major
"See,
goals, but the vestry needs to start on that with the diocese. And the bishop is actually the one who gives you candidates. People need to recognize that.
Yeah, there are rules, folks.
So, and one of the things I loved about the Holy Conversations here was they thanked the bishop explicitly for the candidates, bishops have given them in the past. That they've been very good for this congregation.
But I
And so-
thought and maybe I misunderstood, so who controls the decision about what we're gonna do in the interim?
No, it's a combination between the vestry and the diocese, because any priest can only come to a call with the bishop's permission.
So the interim is something that I would think that as a vestry member, I would want to hear what the parishioners are saying. Doesn't mean they're gonna decide it. I mean, I'm just looking for input, not that they're gonna direct where this goes. That's why I thought the first three, I would want to.
So what
New
kind of,
vestries, don't they?
what kind of goal would you set? Cause it's really a goal that it's called because. and
The
that-
Episcopal Church.
But that's
Why,
what-
because that process is already determined as my.
Well, that's what he said, that should be up to the vestry, not the whole congregation.
Well, and part of the reason it's up to the vestry, not the whole congregation, is because the vestry is going to go through and lead the process with the congregation. And that has a lot more to do with your identity as a congregation and your mission and vision than it does to do with what people think they want in a priest, which tends to be personal characteristics. So it tends to be like what people think about in their dating practices, and that's not helpful. You don't get priests based on those characteristics. You get them based on what they're skilled and passionate about.
Yes, we actually are.
But I don't think
I
that's
was
what Jenna's
talking
asking.
about
Jenna's asking, I
the
think,
interim.
the process for the interim, but like, I can't wrap my head around how would you create a goal for that?
I don't know.
It's sort of
but
my
I-
head, like,
I don't know, but that's gonna be a big question for everybody. That's what people were talking about at the annual meeting. They had questions about that. So I just thought that it would make sense to hear what they think about our options, because I'm not talking about the priest, choosing a priest part. I get that. That's a different thing. I'm talking about from, May until that happens, what decision is made. I'm not saying they make the decision, but I thought, I guess as a member of the church, I want to at least be able to have my.
no, and in my head, it's like, I'm not really seeing how that ties to vision and creating here's the vision of the church. Do you get where I'm saying? Like, I can't really see.
So
how
that
do
is
you
really just choosing,
Goals.
that's just choosing leader.
Possibly.
not
Well, I feel
leader.
like-
Let me back up and try this from a different direction, which is the vestry is going to be interviewing whoever these candidates are, or it might just be the wardens who decide who supply priests. Okay, because somebody needs to make those decisions.
And that's canonical.
That's canonical. For supply priests, the wardens just make that decision, and they're given that authority,
No, it's.
and they'll decide to talk about what they need to ask the people and talk about. When you get to the priest interviews, ordinarily you're going to get, as a vestry or a search team delegated by the vestry, instructions about how to conduct interviews and how to make decisions about candidates, which are both intuitive and qualification rated. But it's gonna be up to the vestry. It's not up to what does the congregation. You are picked as a vestry as representatives of this congregation, and the congregation is going to need to trust that you have their best interests in. Not because they got a bunch of input into that. There will be places in the process where they can put more input into. And I hope that they feel like this process about identity and mission is part of that input that they're given.
And as a vestry person, and I do realize not every person here is a vestry person, but as a vestry person, you need to bring those things that into the conversation. I mean, that's what we were doing the last vestry meeting, but when I said, what are you hearing? You need to bring that into the conversation so that, I mean, Jenna, when you read through that vestry resource guide, and everybody who reads through that vestry resource guide, you'll see that it is the canonical responsibility of the senior warden during a transition to make these decisions and make this all happen. And the vestry will be a part of that with help and support and all of those sorts of things. But that's the way our structure works. So, you know, do that. If, you know, when somebody says something to you, bring it as a conversation piece, so that everybody in the vestry knows what's being, what people are thinking about. But again, in the end, and why that is so important is so that your senior warden knows. So then that the vestry takes that step in the transition in the interim. The vestry will, so your search committee eventually works as a subcommittee of the vestry. They will do the work of receiving names from, hopefully, you know, everybody does the work of this is what we want. That's way before receiving names. But eventually, the vestry and then search committee receives names from the bishop through the canon for ministry, and entertains all those people and talks to them, and then your search committee recommends one of those names to the vestry, and then your vestry decides on who the call goes to.
So then my question is, then what are we doing with some of these things on the list? Because that would be the only one that follows that same route.
What else would it?
To me, financial resources, because to me, when I brought it up, I had worded it differently. Let's see, I put down become financially stable.
Mhm.
And so, if I understand correctly, the vestry is the one that, you know, this financial committee makes recommendations, puts together a budget, but the vestry is the one who votes on it.
Correct.
Okay, so what are we doing up here with the entire church on number 5?
I'd be a listening session.
Or on certain people that are-
Yeah.
Yeah, or like.
Get more people on your finance.
Or a goal would be, do a goal under financial resources would be to do a, stewardship drive. Or have a listening session. I see that as a goal. My thought about number 2 is that really that ties into like a goal under communications is to disseminate information about what the process is for the priest call in between and permanent. And so in my head, that's a goal under number 1, communications, to get that information about the priest call out there in a way to everyone so that they can understand. Because I think what I'm hearing from you, Jenna, is that people are confused about the process, confused about where we're at and how are we gonna know when next steps are happening.
Right.
So I feel like that might be a goal under communications.
But I think it could be a goal under that, and, I mean, that's.
Oh, and under financial resources,
No,
yeah.
no, but we're talking about number two, that's all I'm saying is that I think people are gonna be looking to be able to be heard about that. I'm not saying they get to decide it, maybe they don't get to set the goals, they get the goals to get free, you know, but, I was just initially bringing up, how can we let people, give their input, who maybe aren't here today, on these specific topics, now that we've kind of narrowed down that.
So this is all part of this visioning and missioning work that we're doing. Eventually, there will be all sorts of work around, now that we know who we are, what our identity is, then there will be all sorts of work around creating the profile. And that can be all sorts of surveys. I'll tell you, I had a interview with a church on Tuesday night who might possibly be interested in me for a short-term gig. And so they presented to me their six top priorities with a percentage of the congregation assigned to each one of those priorities as to what they want. That information was all gotten together through survey. So I mean, that is part of the process, but that part of the process is a bit further down the road. You have to, well, this is my opinion. Trinity needs to, so we're doing this work, which is really good and wonderful work. And Trinity also needs to figure out what they want to do for the interim. So share resources, or find supply clergy, or hire an interim. Those might be your three possibilities. Then when that gets going, the next thing is to say, okay, we want to eventually, and our goal is 1 year, 2 years, whatever that is, hire a full-time clergy person. So this is what that's going to look like. We're gonna do a survey. We're gonna find out what everybody's thinking about. We're gonna put together our profile, and the bishop's gonna send us people who fit that profile. So you're looking at a ways out there and numbers of steps.
And I think I want to go back to what I first just said, is we had these topics and are we gonna just go off, or are we gonna maybe have formal meetings to go through the next part of this? That's what, and you had requested, I'd like to continue to have these type of meetings to flesh it out and go through it, I thought, right?
At least one more, yeah, before it goes to
Okay,
that.
so my original question was, if somebody could be here.
That's why we're recording, so they can watch that and they can give their input.
But their input, so that when we're talking about, like, Joe wasn't here today, she gave her input ahead of time, we knew what we were talking about.
Mhm.
So I was only saying, if we're gonna be talking about, if we're gonna do one more session with the goal of knocking off 3 of them or 5 of them on this list, top 5. I was just asking how to put that out to everybody in the church, so if they can't be here, they could have a voice.
Yeah.
That's all I was saying.
So that can be done like, you know, inviting them to the next meeting. If they can't come to the next meeting, then you have 3 tripods in the back of the church. 1, 2, 3. Please write down how you see us getting to this. What are the goals to this? How do you see us doing that? I mean, I don't know how you solicit other ways.
But that's what I was talking about 5 minutes ago, about doing that,
Yeah.
just setting out a few of
Yeah.
them to get them started.
Yeah.
And then there was a concern about asking them to do goals, they're not trained in this, so we were really just having a conversation about. Right, no, what to ask them. I just wanted them to have that opportunity. That's the only thing I was saying.
Yeah, and then that information gets put into the whole goal setting.
This is also simple, if we just listen to people.
But you
And I-
need to have a means to listen to people, and that's what Jenna is talking about. What's the means to have people say what they want?
And what we suggested was a suggestion box for anybody, not
One
just
way.
this committee.
Right.
Anybody in the church to put in how they feel about these things that we've discussed here today.
I think we have to acknowledge that the priests call that particular focus area has its own separate. Because it's not under our control, it's through the diocese with all of that, but it just has to be handled maybe a little bit differently with care because it's a different situation.
I guess I'm not communicating. Coming from, I understand that, and I think everybody here understands that. There might be plenty of people in the church that don't understand that. And so maybe they need to be educated on that, but I don't think that means they can't share an opinion about something.
Right, not at all.
And that's all I was asking is for them to share their opinion. We may, we don't want to get back to going about complaints about the past, more suggestions for the future. That's what I was looking for.
Right. Suggestions, and but anybody should be able to give us suggestions. That's all I'm saying. And then we should be able to listen to those suggestions, and if you don't like it, I'm
just asking that the suggestions come in the format that we're using for this process. That's what I'm saying. If you have 3 things picked up, if you want to know about how you feel about communication, please comment on your selection.
I think maybe we don't want to phrase it in terms of how you feel, but what goal. Just because otherwise we'll get a treatise on, oh, I really loved it how it was 50 years ago. Oh, yes, from some people we will. But the other thing is that if we want to poll people on what they think about and what we're gonna do in between, I think we need to tell people that that's not entirely even up to the vestry. So that they know, because I bet there are a lot of people who come to church here who don't know that. So, you can let us know if you're more interested in supply, interim, or sharing resources. But in the end, that may not be our decision.
Right, but that feedback would be important to understand.
So moving forward, since we're half an hour later, I think what we were gonna do is, we're gonna wait for Jim to get the notes from this meeting put together so that we have everything in writing. Then I'll reach out to people to see if people are willing to make those suggestion pieces for the top 3 and put them out for coffee hour. When Joe gets back, we'll schedule a meeting for everybody to meet again with Jim, to go over the goal setting process and use the feedback from the feedback. And then we'll move on from there. Does that sound like a good plan for everyone? Awesome, great, thank you, Jim.
For those who can stay for a couple of minutes, can we close in prayer? Thank you.
So kitchen staff, we're gonna just do our closing prayer. You wanna join us while we do that?
They can't hear it.
We're doing the closing prayer. You guys wanna join?
Great. We're on page 3. ask that you think about and offer, intercessions or thanksgivings when we get to the middle of the prayers. Prayers for Trinity and community. Let us pray. God, our creator and lover, God, our savior and Lord, God, our sustainer and lover, God, the Holy Trinity.
We give thanks for the fine people of Trinity Church in Janesville for where they have been, where they are today, where you lead us. And thanks for the wonderful. Guide us on that thing.
Continue prayers for David Blossom. Hope. Dennis Milton. Beth Muller. I'm thankful that Joel stepped up to be our senior warden.
Prayers that
those who are absent.
Prayers that Joe and Ralph have safe travels and a safe trip home. Absolutely. Prayer for John with us.
Prayer for Bob Cole. Thanksgiving,
O God, most holy, in Jesus Christ, you have laid a foundation on which we are built. Help us to follow your gospel, that we may fulfill it and serve it to you. Beloved, we are called to be your children.
Thank you.